All right, so this is the financial focus portion of our webinar. And this week we're going to talk about, can you live off of dividends and interest in retirement? As I said at the top of this webinar, this is an area that I've heard of. I hear this time and time again is, well, I'm just going to live off dividends and interest. I have X numbers of dollars and I'm just going to live off of those dividends and interest. So there's a couple of potential issues for that. Well, first of all, your money just may be at risk of not lasting long enough. And we're going to look at different risks and we're going to look at comparisons. The other thing is, depending on the amount of money you have, it may not give you the spendable cash flow that you want, need, and really deserve in retirement. So what do I mean by that? So if we're just living off of dividends and interest, and maybe you're earning 4%, I'm going to tell you what we use as assumptions, but let's just use 4% as an easy number. And you have $1 million that you're starting with. Well, that's $40,000 a year before any tax. Well, that may not allow you to do the, have the lifestyle need that you want, or maybe even carry your basic expenses. Forget about travel and fun and whatnot, but it may not allow you to do that. So you've got to look at all these different things. Try to stay away from these sound bites that you hear, and maybe what somebody else did. I had a relative who they just lived off their dividends and interest, and boy, they did fine. Or I heard this, I keep hearing this, from my plumber or friends, or what have you. But these kind of cliches, these myths, these sound bites, they're comfortable because we hear them over and over again. But you've got to put the work in to really see what's going to be the best potential outcome for you. It can't just be catchy lines. And by the way, financial advisors get caught up in this too. It's not just you folks out there trying to figure this out yourself. When I was coming up at Payne Weber, UBS, Wells Fargo, Wachovia, I was taught these rules of thumb. You're going to be living off of 85% of your income during retirement. False for most people. False, false, false. Taxes are going to be lower in retirement. False, false, false for most people. So it's financial advisors are, perpetuate these things too. So we're here to try to correct it for you. We're here to try to enlighten you. So let's dig into it. So I'm going to share my screen here. So I'm sharing kind of the makings of a financial plan. This is a platform we use. You can see up there, it's called eMoney. For us, we call it the Attleboro Wealth Management Plan Tracker. We try to keep things simple for our clients. We've got a plan tracker where we track your financial plan. We've got an investment tracker where we track your investment performance and accounts. And there's a lot of other stuff that goes in that investment tracker. There's a secure vault there for sharing information. And then, we custody our assets currently at Charles Schwab. So there's also Schwab access. So what I'm going to be sharing with you here on my screen is kind of the internal workings of these financial plans, because I wanted to answer this question. Okay, let's look at it. Can you just live off of dividends and income? And if you do, what does that mean? So now let's talk about some assumptions. Well, we used an enhanced income assumption, and we had a bit of discussion about this. And this is generated from this company, eMoney, the financial planning platform. eMoney is one of the most widely, if not the most widely used financial planning platform. They put a lot of work into their assumptions. There's a lot of data and history backing these things up. And I thought it was most fair to use a widely accepted assumption rather than us just saying 4% or 3% or whatever we thought. So that enhanced income comes in at 4.83%. Now, I'll tell you, I think that's a little high. Personally, as a planner, I would ratchet that down. But for today's purposes, it's just fine. So we're looking at 4.83%. And you can see here, this person, and this is not a real person, or, this is based off of a person, but, their last name is not Sample or Sample. So they've got about $3.2 million of investments. So you can see that $3.2 million of investments, you might think, well, geez, I can generate a nice income off of that. And if we're looking at dividends and interest at 4.83%, and that's what we're going to look at spending, if we're just spending off of our dividends and interest and trying not to touch principal, And because that's the idea. People say, well, geez, I just want to live off my dividends and interest and not touch principal. Well, then we can spend about $154,000 a year. So $3.2 million times 4.83 is $154,000 a year. Now, this person, you'll see in a minute, has projected expenses. It comes from a real life situation of about $148,000 a year. So there's a surplus, at least to start out. So you might think, and I hear this a lot, well, geez, I'm going to get Social Security. I'm going to get a pension. I'm going to get this. And if I draw out dividends and interest, I need $148,000. I'm getting $154,000, so I'm solid. I'm good. And that might be good in the short term, but we're going to look at the effects in the long term. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at this. We're going to go into it, and I'm going to have some reports to share with you. So let's first go into and share the reports. Okay, so we're going to look at cash flow. So there are a lot of different things we should be looking at in financial planning. We should be looking at Monte Carlo simulations, the stress tests and simulations and probability of success. But right now, for today, we're going to focus on these cash flows. And here we go. You can see these different plans that were built out. And we're going to start with dividend and interest income, no Roth conversion. So that's important. But we're gonna have dividends and interest income, no Roth conversions. So let's update that and put it in there. And here's what we see. So on the left there, you see inflows and outflows of the plan. So living off dividend and interest income, no Roth conversions. Now the reason I'll tell you that we came up with no Roth conversions is because we don't have any extra room for the expenditure of taxes, and because we're so tight already, so the person needs $148,000 a year, they're generating $154,000 a year, so we don't have the window to really do any Roth conversions and take away from their potential income if the goal is not to draw down any principal. So we're sticking with the client's objective. So we have total inflows here, you'll see in this green line, and total outflows. But I like, and that's fine. That's a fine line graph. But I like this chart here, this bar graph. So you see where we start just over $3 million, and it draws down fine over time. But let's dig into it. So if we're here at age 60, now this person's retiring at age 60. They give up planned distributions. So these are the dividends and interest of $154,000. So therefore they have total inflow of $154,000. Their total expenses in the first year are $146,870. So they have outflows of $146,870. So you can see they have a surplus of $7,589. So their assets are down slightly, $3.81 million. But you'll see here that we've got this increases $146,000, $153,000, $157,000. I'm in this total expenses category here. So you'll see that it increases, and of course it increases because of inflation. So what's our inflation assumption? Our inflation assumption is at 3%. So if you're listening to the first part of the webinar, CPI came in, and I think it was 2.4%. PPI came in at 2.8%. So we're really not stretching that much when we're looking at a 30-year inflation number of 3%. Currently in our planning, in our regular financial planning, we assume a 3.5% inflation rate. But I did notch it down for this just to kind of err on the side of the goals of living off of dividends and interest, just to see what the effect would be. But 3% is fine. Again, in the planning, we like to assume a little higher because I think it's more responsible to assume a higher cost and make adjustments as we need to. But we do adjust that from time to time, so it may be time to adjust it with inflation coming down. Anyway, but you see here we have in this strategy. So let me explain these columns. So we have income flows here. So we have no income because we're retired. Then we see Social Security at age 70. Now, yes, he could take Social Security. This person could take Social Security at age 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, all the way down to age 70. This person was planning on taking Social Security at age 70. And if this was a client that we were just building this out for, we would explore all these different ages probably after 67. I don't know if I'd recommend anyone in most cases take Social Security early, But, sometimes with a spouse. But anyway, we go back to Heather and we do a full analysis and we look at the pros and cons. So if you don't know what I'm talking about with Heather, you can go back to look at our full weekly webinar. And I refer to our Social Security analyst, Heather Schreiber, who's one of the best in the nation. So you'll see Social Security kicking in here in this first column, income flows. And as always, if you're a client of ours and you see these blue links, you can dig in and see where the income is coming from. This is very, very simple because it's only Social Security, but what we usually see is we usually see many different categories here. We kept this as simple as possible. We go back to cash flow here. So we've got income flows, we have plan distributions. Again, these are your earnings. And then we've got these total expenses. So you'll see here that it fails. It fails almost in year 3. So what we would have to do is we'd have to adjust these plan distributions down to match what's available. So what happens is he's not meeting his objective. So we have a choice. We either have a choice of drawing from the account, which he said he didn't want to do. Right now I want to just live off my dividends and income, or reducing our plan distributions, therefore reducing our income. So it's a failed plan from that point of view. There's also some risk there because if we scroll down, these are just linear projections. This is just step 1 in the financial planning process when we're looking at this, because step 2 would be now we stress test it. We put some stressors in there, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. And we do the Monte Carlo simulation, which is a probability of success. And all that is very important. But if this is failing from the beginning, we're likely not to see good results from a Monte Carlo simulation. But this would actually return likely, a positive Monte Carlo. Well, we can do it in a second. But it'll probably give us a positive Monte Carlo return because, he is ending his life with about $825,000. But that is a linear projection, assuming that 4.85% doesn't change year after year over year over year. So now all we have to do, though, is lay over one what-if scenario. So let's just do a bear market at retirement or after retirement. So that we try to replicate as closely as possible the Great Recession. We think that's a good stressor to show on any plan. Now, let me also say this. This is where most financial planning, even if it's living off dividend income or whatever the strategy is that a planner or an individual may look at or prepare for you, this is usually where this starts and stops. Hey, look, we've got good projections. We have a successful Monte Carlo result. You're going to have $825,000 if you live to age 95. Is that good for you? Does that work for you? And they say, wow, that sounds great. But all you have to do is add on one stressor, and this is where most people miss it. Most financial planners, as I told you, I have the opportunity to coach financial planners from time to time around the country, and I ask them things like this. Well, did you put a stressor in for what if there's a prolonged bear market like the Great Recession again at retirement? What happens to that plan? Well, look at this. So this chart looks dramatically different. So that's being drawn down very, very quickly just with a prolonged bear market like we saw during the Great Recession. And you'll see that if I scroll down here, well, at age 84, he's potentially out of money, right? So, so that might be long enough for some people, but, I once had a woman very early in my career, I showed her something like this, and she said, well, I'll be dead by then. And I said, well, you better hope so. So it probably wasn't my best bedside manner moment, but it's the truth. So all you have to do is lay over one thing, and that's a bear market at retirement to see a dramatic effect. And we do higher taxes after retirement and higher taxes and bear market after retirement. So you've got to look at all these things. So we're showing the risk of this plan. The first thing is it fails right from the beginning if it's truly your objective to meet your living expenses, right? Of the 146,870, then adjusted for inflation, and not touch your principal, because we're failing that plan fails in the 3rd year because you're starting to have to draw principal 2704. If that's acceptable to you and you say, okay, well, I'm starting to draw principal, it goes back. We have a surplus here. I'm sorry, I didn't explain these columns. So we have plan distributions. We have total expenses. This is where I was, total expenses. And then we have net cash flow. So total outflows is, what's going out for expenditures. And then we have net cash flow. So it's either positive, we have money left over at the end of the year, or it's negative. We have to draw from somewhere at the end of the year. So we have to draw from principal. Net cash flow, if there is net cash flow, that gets reinvested. We don't just let it sit there, it gets reinvested. So you'll see here in this net cash flow column, you've got negative years, negatives. That's not necessarily a bad thing. You save up money to draw it out. That's okay. You just want to draw it out the right way. We have a couple positive years here, positive cash flow years, and that's when he starts taking Social Security, and then we go negative pretty quickly again. And we get to the point where, at 95, they're no longer here, or he's no longer here, and he's got about $825,000. And again, let me just lay it over. It's something like a bear market happens. We're out of money at age 86, I think it was. 84, age 84. So now, how do we handle something like that as planners? Okay, we look past the simple, well, I'm just going to live off my dividend income. We look past the sound bites. I'm just going to live off my dividend and income. These easy kind of comfortable things that we hear. We dig in and we do the work. So you've likely heard of our three pillars: asset allocation, very, very important, principal protection, and account segmentation. Well, if we just look at account segmentation, so let's just do segmentation, no conversions. So we're comparing. So first, dividend and interest income, no conversions, and segmentation. Let me put this side by side because I think it'll be more impactful. That's not it. We go here, segmentation, no conversions. So this is account segmentation, no conversions. And I want to update that to read account segmentation. But you'll see what happens here. We have this steady drawdown as opposed to actually an increase over time. Now, this person's objective may not be to build up, almost $5 million or $4.5 million by the time he's no longer here. But isn't it better, all things being equal? We're not reducing the withdrawals. All we changed was how the money's being withdrawn. We're not reducing the withdrawals. We're not changing the retirement date. You can see the same retirement date as 2026. We're just saying, do it a little differently. So if we look at, we've got big negative net cash flows in the segmentation side. So this left-hand side is dividend and interest income, what we were just looking at, no Roth conversions. This is account segmentation, no Roth conversions. And you'll see we've got the same potential outflows. It's actually a little less here in this year, but we've got a huge net cash flow here of $142,143. But the assets continue to increase because we've got them segmented where we're drawing from the first portion that is generating dividends and interest, mostly interest, actually all interest right now because it's all money market and short-term bonds. And then segment 2, 3, 4, it fans out more with more growth potential as your needs. It's time-based. So as your income needs fan out. So what I mean is your first 3 years, I'm trying to avoid going to the whiteboard here. So your first 3 years, we set aside in a separate portfolio. That's segment 1. And in an example here, that would be about, $400,000+ that we'd set aside in segment 1. And that would be invested in something that is very, very safe, doesn't have market risk, and gives us a good income yield. And you draw for that in the first 3 years. Now, you're not just living off the income, you're drawing that segment down. That segment comes down to zero. Segment 2 rolls in. Segment 2 is invested 40% stock, 60% bonds right now. And that gives us, now there's things that we do in that 40% that help protect risk as well. You can't just go into a 40% stock and 60% bond portfolio. There's other nuances to it. But that gives us a little bit more growth potential. And then as segment 1 is spent down, segment 2 rolls into that. Segment 3 gives us more stock exposure, therefore more growth risk. Now, segment 3 is money that you're not going to need for, let's see, segment 1 is 1, 2, 3 years typically. Segment 2 is 4, 5, 6 years. So segment 3 would be 7, 8, 9 years. So that's money you're not going to need for the next, or until, 7 to 9 years from now. So then once segment 2 is rolled into segment 1, segment 3 rolls into segment 2. And then we have segment 4, 5, 6, and we go out, and legacy longevity, and we crank up the growth potential as we go out. So it gives us an ability to be invested more aggressively, therefore get more growth for the money that we're not going to need for some time, usually 7+ years without any kind of risk protection, and allows us to draw down the earlier portfolios. Yes, it's more complex. No, it's not simple, but doesn't it potentially make sense? Because look here, instead of seeing these, well, geez, I'm meeting my goals. I've got total outflows or inflows of $154,000, total outflows of $146,000. I got a net positive income of $7,589. Well, here you're looking at drawing your savings down, the savings that money you've put away for retirement. It's okay to draw them down. $142,143, $142,641. This dips down a bit. But you see these withdrawals here. And then again, Social Security kicks in the same time. Nothing has changed here other than the method of withdrawal. And now let's just check in at age 70, where Social Security kicks in. Over here, living off of dividends and income, look at that number. We've got $3,042,000 left. Over here, we've got $3.4 million. So $410,000. A little bit more than that, $410,000 difference at age 70, just by doing things a little bit differently. Now let's fast forward and go to age 80. Let's look at the difference. So we've got $2,800,000 here. He's living off the dividends of income and income. We've got $4.1 million here. Significant. Now let's go to age 85. I like to check in at age 85 because most of us, we look at age 95, we look at age 100, our planning goes out to age 95 here. We look at those advanced ages and we think, well, I don't know if we're going to be there. I don't know if I'm going to know what's going on. I don't know if I'm going to be there. But most of us believe that, this is a single person, but a married couple too. Most of us believe that we're going to have an opportunity to probably be here till age 85. I hope that's the case for you. Well, let's look at the difference between these two columns. So this is just living off of your dividends and income at age 85. And on the left-hand side, well, you've got $2.4 million left. If you do things a little bit differently, you've got $4.4 million left. Folks, that's easy math. That's $2 million more, just about. $2 million more. So that doesn't mean you have to wait until you're age 85 to spend that $2 million. You can spend it all during your lifetime. Or you can say, I've got an extra amount here to help pay for my health care, to help pay for, really whatever it may be, leave to my kids or leave to a charity, whatever really, lights you up and keeps you going. So now I think you understand that. So now that's the power of that is just account segmentation. That is not any of our other, our other strategies. I'm going to share those, but now let's look at, you might remember, I can't effectively, well, maybe I can. Let's lay over the bear market after retirement on each one of these and see what that, again, dividends, living off dividends and income and comparing account segmentation, no conversions, bear market after retirement. Let's see the difference. Let's see what happens. Well, here we see at age 84 on the left, he's got negative, that's a negative balance in this column here. It's a negative balance of $131,000. Can't happen. So essentially, he's out of money at age 83. At age 83, just by using segmentation, if there's a bear market early in retirement, there's $400,000 left. So now I'm over here on the right here, if you're following my cursor. We've got $246,000 compared to negative $131,000, or $393,000 at age 83 compared to $42,000, just by doing things a little differently, not taking more risk. Not taking, I guess as you're pushing out the holdings in later years, you're giving more growth opportunity, but you don't need those funds for later on. But not changing his standard of living, we're spending the same amount of money, and then but you'll see here we do potentially run out of money if there's a protracted bear market at age at age 86. So we've picked up, 2 years. Now, another thing that we commonly use is, another tool we commonly use is Roth conversions. So let's lay over the next step, account segmentations with Roth conversions. And let's see if that helps. So again, I'm going to just apply this to the bear market after retirement. We're going to compare it side by side. Now you'll remember that using just dividends and interest, the risks of bear market retirement, ran out of money at 83. If we're at segmentation, no Roth, we run out of money at 86. Now let's see what happens if we have Roth conversions. Well, you'll see here that we don't hit a negative balance here on the right-hand side at 86,000. Again, follow my cursor here on the right, 86,443, compared to a negative balance, which again can happen, of $891,000. So just Roth conversions laid over with segmentation gets us another 2 years. So we're building. We went from running out of money at age 83 to carrying it all the way to age 88. So just those two things are very, very helpful. Now let's look at all of our standard recommendations. If we lay over, if we're using asset allocation, our three pillars, asset allocation, principal protection, and account segmentation, and our tax strategies are Roth conversions, what happens there? We have that same bear market after retirement. Well, just look at the graph, folks. So we bleed this down. We have a lot of risk here. We bleed it down. Here we still have funds, right? So we've got that experience of that loss. You know, we have a drawdown, but we continue to increase. And now when we compare it, let's go to when we're negative returns. We have negative balance here on the left-hand side. If we're just following that simple strategy that maybe worked for my uncle, you know, of drawing just dividends and interest over retirement. We have that simple strategy where we have a negative balance of $131,000 compared to still having potentially $1.8 million in your investment accounts. And if you're fortunate enough to live to be 95, you know, you've either spent a decade with no money left, if you're trying to live off of your dividends and interest and not adjust your standard of living, because that's what would have to happen if you have to. If you're trying to keep money left on this left-hand side, just living off of dividends and interest, you'd have to adjust your standard of living and what you need. Where side-by-side comparison here, you've got $3.4 million left at age 95. So negative $2.4 million compared to $3.4 million. I think that makes the case pretty well. Even just from the beginning, you know, without these stressors, it makes the case very, very well. So let's just go back to the beginning. So remove these stressors. And if we just go apples to apples comparisons, dividend, no, that would be the same thing. Segmentation, no conversions. You'll see that even just segmentation without conversions, you can just see by these graphs, you have drawdown, you have money left at the end, or more money left at the end of your life, or more money left, you know, in your 80s, in your 70s, and when things can get very, very expensive with medical insurance. Why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you do it this way? Because it's harder. Yes, it takes more. Thank you. Look at that. Jesse, you're on top of it. He already adjusted. Account segmentation, no conversions. It's harder. It's you have to put the work in. It's not just a cliche. It's not something you can just fall back on and have that comfort in your mind saying, geez, this sounds good. What you want is the comfort and confidence that a true financial planning strategy will bring you. You want the comfort and confidence in your retirement that really understood that doing the work and having a process like asset allocation, account segmentation, principal protection, understanding the value of these things, that is what's going to give you the comfort and confidence you need in retirement. Not a cliche, not a soundbite, not just, oh, geez, I'm going to live off of my dividends and interest. And I started with this person because, you know, let's go back to the beginning here. I've got a good amount of money, $3.2 million. We're not just looking at somebody with $1 million. You know, that's harder. Why isn't that flipping over? We're $3.2 million generates $154,000 in the first year. If we're using what I think is probably too high of a rate, but again, I'm using a trusted assumption, and that's fine. I didn't want to make something up for you. So the starting at $3.2 million doesn't get it done for this person. Puts too much risk for this person. Could they get there comfortably? Sure. In if everything goes perfect over the next, so they're 65 years old, over the next 35 years, if there's no bumps in the road, sure, they could probably be just fine. And unfortunately, that's how most financial plans start and stop. If everything's perfect, if we're just looking through our rose-colored glasses and we achieve the same rate of return over the next several years, several decades, then you got nothing to worry about. Heaven forbid if we have widely fluctuating markets, a protracted bear market sometime during that time, or what if something of a huge expense like tax, we didn't even touch on that here because that's a whole other discussion. But if taxes increases significantly, like we really know that they have to, that's where, the combination, the comparison of not doing Roth conversions and doing Roth conversions would almost be unfair because it's just going to blow it out of the water, laying over everything. We're already millions and millions of dollars over just by doing the work, making it more complex. Sure, it's complex. That's why you reach out and you find qualified, educated, experienced individuals. As much as I like coaching financial advisors around the country, don't find somebody who dabbles in this. I shared a story about someone who contacted me yesterday, had a phone call with them, and their financial planner suggested a very, very small conversion amount when they need a much greater conversion amount to have a dramatic effect on their retirement plan. And that's just somebody who's dabbling. That's somebody who's, maybe knows what a Roth conversion is, maybe knows how to get it done, maybe doesn't know how to get it done, but they certainly don't know how to calculate an effective and efficient Roth conversion and a Roth conversion plan. You've got to make the updates every single year, but you don't fly by the seat of your pants. So that is our financial focus for today. I hope that that was a good comparison for you, looking at using one of these kind of myths and cliches of living off dividends and interest compared to a real comprehensive approach and a more sophisticated approach, and what the benefits may be for you. So that is. Again, I hope it was beneficial. If you have questions, you can reach out to us at questions@attleboroughwealth.com. You can explore more information on our website at attleboroughwealth.com. We're working all the time. I have Stephanie from our team here always working to update the website, keep it current for you. And if you have thoughts about things you want me to talk about or you'd like to see, let me know. Again, you can reach out to us at questions@attleboroughwealth.com. We do have one question that I see from Anne. So Anne writes, do the models you utilize for financial planning include any projected taxes for non-Roth investments? Well, sure. So we have, our models will have a return, a gross return. So the net return is going to be affected by if it's a Roth, right? There's no tax return, or there's no tax to be paid on it if they're qualified distributions, or traditional IRA. So that's really where the difference is going to come from, Ann. And so what we see is that we really don't see in our models, like, if the model returns 8%, we really don't see a reduction by a percentage in the model return. What we'll see is in our plan, we see the cost of the tax. So it comes out in the plan rather than in the model. So the gross return would be the same for both. The net return works out in the plan. I hope that answers your question. All right, folks, that was fun for me. I hope it was beneficial for you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all next week. Take care and have a great week. Bye-bye.